Hey guys, welcome back to Results Junkies podcast. Paul and I are talking about OpenAI and their aspirational spending spree coming up over the next couple of years. And one of my absolutely favorite topics, Microsoft Teams. I mean, I can't even begin to put into words how excited Microsoft Teams makes me. Mr. Singh, how the heck are you?
I'm good, man. I am sad that I'm not in Vegas with you. Looking at the background there, that looks gorgeous. Although it's pretty nice here too, but that seems more gorgeous.
Oh, Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
So you basically live in Vegas right now.
I did fly home for a few days to pretend I lived in Virginia. I have a FedEx envelope about yay thick of all the things I didn't get through that I need to bring with me. So yeah, it's been
I imagine you really only came back to just maintain your residency in Virginia because you love paying our personal property taxes.
that's actually right. Why would I want to have no state income tax when
I
I could
know.
spend more and pay tax on top of the tax I pay on the cars? Yes, that's always
Like
special.
I got nothing against Virginia. I grew up here. I like it. My family's nearby. The kids are happy. My wife's happy. But man, 2 days a year when those biannual personal property tax emails or letters show up, I'm just like, oh, what am I doing?
Oh
So
man. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, a little bit of housekeeping. Show at resultsjunkies.com. He is out Paul Singh on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion. Let's get started with OpenAI, and that way we can leave the tasty morsels of Microsoft Teams to the end when I think you're going to get a little bit fired up.
why
So
you're making me hungry.
I know. I'm here for you, Mr. Singh. Here for you. So the thesis of this article about OpenAI is just how much they've committed to spend. And it's an interesting way to look at things because we talk about revenue and all that stuff and what companies' projections are there. But the numbers that OpenAI is projected to spend over the next year are astronomical. And
I,
when you think
yeah,
about how many customers they have to acquire to cover that spending, I almost think the math doesn't work. And we get into this realm of, they like you remember I signed up for the $200 a month tier for a brief minute there, and then I dropped down. And so I think, whether they come up with a $50 tier or something, they really need to find a way to get more people to pay them more money. Because I just don't know there are enough humans at, $20 a pop to get to $60 billion in spending over the course of it.
yeah, and I think to just put numbers to it, and I'm sure you'll link to the notes or to the article in the notes here, but so they're committing to spending upwards of 60 was it I had to double triple check that $60 billion in compute with just one vendor, and that doesn't include some of the other commitments they've made. That in of itself is pretty eye-watering, but as recently as June of this year, July of this year, they talked about having hit 12 billion in annualized revenue, which is a combination of individual accounts like the ones you and I have, and then
Right.
the enterprise stuff they got. So, but the point here, I think that you're trying to make is that discrepancy between 12 billion in annualized revenue and 60 million spend, that is just a huge gap. And I mean, in this moment, I can't think of another tech company that has bridged that gap before.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think this is all part of this, like, AI arms race. To your point, like, I haven't seen that gap bridged before, and I think that those numbers assume a relative level of dominance by OpenAI.
Well, I mean, but to oversimplify it though, isn't this the typical venture playbook though? Once you got
Yeah.
something that's working, you just pile drive cash into it and you're betting on the land grab.
hmm Exactly right. And
High
as you
risk,
know,
but
yeah,
high
exactly.
return.
As you know, they're not the only ones deploying the strategy. And at numbers, I frankly just don't recall seeing before. The strategy's been employed, thousands of times, and maybe even hundreds of thousands of times during the course that you and I
Yeah.
have been investing in startups. At this scale, this early on, I don't know that we've ever seen.
Well, it's interesting. Just a quick Google search here. So in July of 2024, so let's call it 15 months ago.
hmm
In July of 2024, there was an article that said that it was reporting that OpenAI's annual revenue was 3.4 annualized revenue was approaching $3.4 billion, doubling from just 6 months ago. So they're
Right.
saying in that article from January 1st They were probably at 1.7, then at 3.4. Then I see an article on CNBC for June 9th of this year that says they've hit 10 billion in annual recurring. And then I see Reuters on July 30th, 60 days later, saying 12 billion in annualized revenue. So I guess you just make that mental chart up and draw a trend line. They probably made these commitments because they're not worried about the gap. I mean that's maybe the hypothesis there.
Yeah, I definitely think you're onto something there. I guess the question that I'd have in those situations is at these sort of staggering numbers, I almost wonder like if you're one of the partners that has, gotten these commitments from OpenAI and they don't fulfill the commitment, what do you do? I mean, it's not like you can go just pick up someone to fill a, 10 or $20 billion gap in revenue. So there's
Yep.
there's definitely some issues there that I'm not quite sure how you get around. I mean,
Yeah.
if they miss, it's sort of like, like when, there are certain instances where, when you don't pay your note to the bank doesn't want to take back the asset. And so
Right.
here it's like what do you like if somebody if OpenAI comes up 10 billion short, what are you going to do? Cut them off? I mean,
That's right.
I don't know that you
Yeah.
can. So I'm not
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
right.
sure there's a whole lot of risk on OpenAI's part to commit to these numbers.
I here's the bad joke. I wonder if maybe you and I are just prudish investors or something. Like, we're like, "Hey, listen, here's a seed round, and I'd really hope you could maybe, I don't know, triple it in the next round. That'd be really nice." And then these guys are coming in, they're like, "Listen, don't freak out. I just committed to a $60 billion a year spend." God, it makes me nervous.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Well, I mean, look, I think this is the classic venture playbook, though, right? I mean,
Of course. Yeah.
you're
Yep.
betting. You know what you know what the risk is. The downside risk is effectively
Hmm.
1x what you've put in, and the upside risk is theoretically massive, and that's how the asset class works.
Well, and if
Um,
you're and if you're one of the founders, it's even less than 1x because you may not have put that much in.
and I think that's true, right? And then the other side of this also is that as these numbers get larger and larger, I mean, even though they're larger than I've ever seen in the tech world, it does raise the bar for anybody else that wants to compete.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're like Anthropic or some of these other ones, maybe it doesn't so much because you're like at least in the ballpark, or maybe you're in the ballpark. But for that little team that's working on something new, it just gets that much harder. So
Yeah. I
let's
mean,
see how it works out.
I think, along the lines of like the land grab that we talked about with Zuck a couple episodes ago, I mean, I could certainly see a strategy here where OpenAI is locking up partners and whatever capacity they have to support a company. And even if they do come up short, it'll be too late for those companies to really pivot somewhere else. And that makes it harder for their competition to potentially get, specific services. So, I mean,
Yep. 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 Yep.
strategically, again, if you come up a couple billion short, which is just a hilarious thing to say. Like, what are they going to do?
That's right. That's right. Oh
Uh,
man.
all right. So you want to talk about Microsoft Teams? Because I love talking about Microsoft
Well,
Teams.
yeah, yeah. By the way, you should know that
Uh-oh.
I have purchased a license to. It turns out I need Excel. I'm working on stuff these days where I've hit the 10 million cell limit on Google Spreadsheets, and
Nice.
now I'm torturing my laptop with a license to Microsoft Excel. So I too am I'm not a Teams user. I still got standards, but I've dipped my pinky toe into the Microsoft world.
Well, I'm glad you still have standards. I mean, I've used Microsoft products for 40 years, but the Teams thing, well, I think you have spicy views, so I'm gonna outline the article, and then I'm gonna let you get spicy, and then I'll see where we end up after that. So, anyway, the thrust of this article is that Slack filed a complaint in the EU in 2020, claiming anti-competitive practices by Microsoft for their bundling. Effectively, what was that they were offering Microsoft Teams in Office 365 bundles for essentially no extra fee, or a small enough bundle with other things that no company would choose to extract, then unbundle. And
Yep.
they've been ordered by the EU to create more of a gap between bundles that include Teams and bundles that don't include Teams. Teams being a direct competitor of Slack. And
Yep.
they've also ordered, or Microsoft has agreed to ranges, and so the range is per user a €1 to €8 fee reduction per user if you're not using Microsoft Teams. So when we talked about this in pre-show, it sounded like you had some strong feelings about it, so I'm going to leave it there for just a second.
Well, I don't, man, and now they better be strong feelings, I guess. But, you know,
They don't have to
I
be. Don't worry,
suppose
I'll get spicy after you.
I suppose the good news is that, like, it does set a precedent and you can hopefully buy it here. Although I don't recall being forced to buy Teams here, so I wonder if this is maybe a uniquely European thing. I don't know enough
No, it's
about their
no, no,
pricing model.
it's very much prevalent in the U.S. as well. You can absolutely
Ah,
buy an Office 365 license without buying Teams, but they generally bundle in a way that just forces people into acquiring Teams, if you will.
I see. Yeah, I mean, the good news is that whatever this is, it sets the precedent, and that will follow here. I think where I kind of got where I got a little maybe a little spicy in the pre-show is that it just always feels a little weird to me when government comes in and says, "Hey, you should increase." It says here, Microsoft has agreed to widen the price gap by 50%. I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, tell me, but if the government came to you guys in your restaurants and said, "Listen, the price difference between I forget what you guys call them there, but the double and the single burger needs to be this many percent apart." That putting aside like the personal frustrations of that
Sure.
could have profound impacts on like the overall check and like what it would do to the other pricing or the pricing of other things that customers are going to buy because you still got to hit your bottom line. You still got to pay your payroll, and so I don't know. It just well, actually, is that true? By the way, like there's no regulation here where restaurants have to do it. Like, how would you guys react to that?
Well, I mean, I think sure, there's no regulation based on that, but I think this gets back into this whole concept of what's a monopoly, and so let's just say let's use the burger example for a second because I think we can correlate it back to Teams and Slack. Let's just say that I decide to open up down the street from McDonald's selling burgers, and they decided to make burgers free until I ran out of money. Would that be, I guess the question is would that be an anti-competitive practice, which is essentially what Slack is claiming here. So effectively, you know, I pay for Slack as a user. I don't bundle it with my, Excel spreadsheets or, word processing or any of that. It's a standalone product. I mean, it
Yep.
does multiple things, but like it's a standalone product. And
Yep.
so Microsoft created a competitive product to keep people from buying Slack. And the question was that an anti-competitive move? And the argument on Slack's part is, well, if Microsoft isn't charging enterprise companies more to fold in Teams and they're effectively just giving it to them as part of a larger bundle, are they effectively giving out free hamburgers?
I don't even know how to respond to that. I mean, that like,
Are you hungry? Do you want free hamburgers?
yeah, now I kind of want a free hamburger, a cheeseburger, but yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to respond to that. Like that. Well, my thoughts are kind of like all over the place on this. First of all, let's go back to this for a second. Now, do you use Teams? What do you use? Like, which Microsoft products do you use now?
I love
Because
you. I
I
really do
vaguely
love you.
recall.
I hate Teams with the white hot passion of a
Yeah,
thousand
I was gonna
suns,
say, I remember
maybe a
years ago,
million
you guys, like,
suns.
moved away from everything, I feel like. Yeah, I remember moving you guys moved your email servers, you did everything to get away
We
from that
we we
stuff.
we had a problem with Exchange for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's
But
it, that's it, yeah.
I kept with Word, Excel, and PowerPoint because Excel, if you're a spreadsheet user, Excel is
Yeah,
better than Google Sheets. It just is.
yeah,
But I'm also paying for that product. Where Google Sheets is effectively free. Maybe there's some features that you get of a Google Workspace account.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
recall ever running across any. But no, I mean, but Teams, so you're obviously familiar with Zoom, right?
Yep,
Yeah. So Zoom, sorry to pull the soapbox out, but Zoom has this unique feature that I'm sure you've never seen anywhere else. it just works on whether you have an Apple device or a Microsoft device
Mhm.
or an Android device. It just works. Like it's
Yeah.
cross-platform usable. Whereas Teams frequently crashes my iPhone,
Mm.
repeatedly crashes on my computer.
I
My
Yep.
iPhone seems to be the most stable place to use it, but it just doesn't play well on Apple because Microsoft didn't build it for Apple.
Yeah. Well, okay, all right, so I took you off topic. So ask me the question again because we were talking about burgers and you're basically saying like you're using an example of what happens what do I think about like people giving away free burgers and then I got hungry. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the thesis is there is a point at which you could discount your product enough that it was an anti-competitive practice that the government might have to step in and say this isn't fair. And that's effectively where, where we stand right now with this is that the EU has said, Microsoft, you dropped your price too much on this product, and so you need to give customers more of a discount if they're not going to choose Microsoft Teams.
yeah, I guess I can see both sides of it, right? Like, if Slack filed that complaint in the US initially, I feel like they'd sort of be laughed out the door. And so they filed it in another jurisdiction that would be more amenable to that. And I get why they did it from their perspective, right?
Well, I
On
don't
the
know.
other
I mean, I
hand,
don't know that they'd be laughed out the door. Let me use another example for you. And to be clear, I'm not
okay.
saying they would be, but I mean, look at the airlines for a second. Let's just say that, and this happens all the time in the airline industry. Spirit Airlines decides they're going to start flying Dulles to Orlando because they want a slice of that Disney World business from our home airport, and they're going to charge $50 a flight. If United charges $2 a flight until Spirit can't withstand it anymore, is that anti-competitive?
It just seems like business.
I mean, I think there's a longstanding belief that there is some level at which that is an anti-competitive practice. If you're losing money for an extended period of time,
I,
that at some point is an anti-competitive or monopolistic practice. Whether
I mean,
whether you agree with it or not is a completely separate issue. But I do think the courts have ruled like that they won't allow the airlines to get bigger in certain cases because it would reduce competition.
I think the tricky part, I don't disagree with you in your logic there. I think the tricky part, and what I'm about to say, I think is generally true for almost anything policy related, is that if you pull the string too long or too hard, you can start to unravel and get to an unintended side effect. So, for example,
I agree.
if I were to, let's just use the burger analogy, right? Like you've
Yep,
got a competitor and then you underprice to just win the market share. That makes sense. And to your and the way you just described your logic kind of makes sense. At some point, that becomes unfair, right? But if I pull that thread a little further, it seems to me that there's a slippery slope there, and eventually you could end up in a world where somebody says, "Well, hang on, the minimum price for a burger should be X." And that's where it kinda like, that's where I think I start to get a little bit of a little bit of hesitation here because, let's just use what you just described there, Dulles to Orlando, Spirit
hmm
versus United.
hmm
If one of them discounted it down to $2 a seat, in theory, they would run out of money before well, first of all, they'd run out of supply. It's a finite number of seats. But
No, no,
no?
it's not that's it. That's the whole point of a large airline. Like why, if United could add 10 planes to the route, 20, 50, like they could do, like they have tons of planes. If they really wanted to run Spirit off that route, they could
I
create an unlimited supply.
I mean, conceptually, but you know this better than I, but like there's a finite number of gates. You can only turn that gate. So I get what you're saying though, by the way. Like
I think they,
conceptually, you're right.
yeah, I think they could far exceed demand well before Spirit could put up a fight. And actually, by the way, this happened. Gosh, I'm trying to
By the way,
remember.
can you imagine this? Now I'm just thinking of like a United branded A380, but with like $2 seats. That would be amazing. Like that would be the basis of a reality show right there. I just
Yeah,
imagine it. I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm not stereotyping anybody. I'm just saying, yeah, like 700 seats at $2 a piece.
right.
Chaos would ensue. It would be incredible to watch.
Do you remember? This would have been late 90s. Do you remember an airline called Independence Air that used to fly out of Dulles?
I remember. I think I saw somebody the other day wearing one of the old, like, line jackets or something like that at the local
Yeah.
Target.
Yeah. Do you remember the story behind how they came to be?
No. Uh-uh.
Okay. So they were, and I might get the name wrong, but I'm pretty sure they were Atlantic Coast Airways. They were a regional carrier for United. So like one of their, regional carriers like Wisconsin Air, Republic Airways, or what the airlines that, fly under the United colors. And so United paid them X dollars a passenger to fly a passenger from point A to point B, or they paid them, Y dollars per flight. And they were based here in Dulles. Flew a lot of regional routes for them. And United went to renegotiate the contract with them, and Atlantic Coast said, "Look, we can't be profitable under these rates that you want us to agree to." And they finally broke off negotiations and decided they were going to start their own airline called Independence Air. That was the crux of the name. And they leaned into the whole like we're in D.C. and they had funny political people on board. They had Mary Magdalene and James Cameron doing the speeches on board and all that stuff. But the reality of it is that their model was, well, we're just going to fly a bunch of different places on these regional routes and we'll just fly them cheaply. And United said, okay, we're just going to fly. We're going to put 737s on those routes and we're going to price $10 cheaper than you. And they ran them out of business. So they, it used to be like if you flew Dulles to White Plains, which is where I grew up, the airport's right near where I grew up in New York City, or in Westchester County, New York. Dulles to White Plains, because United was the only one that flew it, it was $400 or $500 one way. So we never flew home. We just drive. Independence Air sold that flight for $60. And so United priced it at $40 until Independence ran out of money because they couldn't fill their planes and they went bankrupt. So was United anti-competitive? I mean, they were certainly anti-competitive. I mean, like, I don't think there's any doubt about that. The question is should that be legal or not? And that's, I think they're like I'm more of a free market guy in general. So to some degree, I'm sort of like, you let the market sort it out. But I mean, there is some level, once you let companies get too big, there is some level of predatory pricing they can put in place where nobody could ever compete with them because they can always run somebody out of business. And I do think it's a slippery slope to your point of, I don't want anybody to set the price for a cheeseburger.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's a fair point. I can't disagree with you on that. I think it's maybe difficult for me to even consider this possibility because again, most of the startups, most of the companies I see or get involved in are so early
Sure.
that these ideas are just not even in the realm of possibility. I suppose my opinion would probably change very quickly to yours if maybe one of our portfolio companies did suffer because of a larger competitor doing this to them. But again, I worry more about the slippery slope, but maybe the counter argument to that concern is that it rarely happens, or at least I can't think of it in this moment
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the best
happening.
the best applicable case here would be the U.S. versus Microsoft from, I'm going to get the date wrong, but 2004, 2005-ish, somewhere in that range, where Microsoft, I don't remember if they actually lost or if they settled, but effectively the government sued them for bundling Internet Explorer as the dominant browser on the Windows operating system.
Yeah. I remember this.
To snuff out Netscape Navigator. I don't remember if they settled or if it was a consent decree, but I mean, Microsoft got their ass handed to them. And they were under a consent decree for something like 5 years, 10 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's not to say that I think this is the same, but I mean, certainly they've done something before that the government under if it was mid 2000s would have been a Republican president said, hey, this is unlawful. I agree with your earlier comment that the EU is definitely a softer playground to file a lawsuit like this for someone like Slack, but I don't think it's without precedent in the U.S.
Yeah, it's fair. Totally fair. I mean, not to prolong the topic though, it does make me wonder where that line in the sand is though, because, using your example of, Microsoft Explorer, for example, when we all used to go to Circuit City to buy a computer, you
I
didn't
went to
really have a
Crazy Eddie, but
choice. Crazy Eddie, right? Yeah, or Micro Center. You remember that one?
Yeah, I do. I think they still
I'd have
exist.
to
I think there's still like 6 of them in the country.
Yeah, there's one like over in Fairfax, over
Yes.
by the
Yep.
Mosaic or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember going there for like a modem years and years ago. A
God, we're old.
28.8 kilobit.
Well, I'm old.
Kilobyte.
You're not quite as old.
It's because I got those good genes. What can I say?
Check, please.
That's a reason why there's 1.5 billion of us. I don't know. So what was I saying with that? Oh yeah, I think this is interesting though because like I wonder where that line in the sand is. When we all used to go back to Micro Center or wherever, you didn't get a choice. You bought any computer you bought, it was going to be the latest iteration of Microsoft Windows.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yep.
wasn't like you could buy
No.
Linux or I
I
don't
mean, Linux
even know if
existed
there was
back then,
anything
but I think
else.
you would essentially just kludge it onto the machine either with the
You'd
virtual
wipe out.
machine or
Yeah,
by
you'd have to
wiping
write
Microsoft.
over.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, and
you
like
would
somehow that
intentionally get rid
was
of it.
right, and somehow that was considered fair, but then the moment Microsoft says, "Oh, by the way, we've now made Internet Explorer the default in Windows." Now all of a sudden that's the line. So, we don't have to rehash what the court said. It's just so fascinating. It feels subjective, but I get where they're coming from on it. I
Well, I
guess it
think
feels subjective unless you're the one either
well,
affected by it.
well, let me ask you a question. Because I think this goes to exactly what you're talking about. What's the primary browser you use on your computer?
Right now, and this is annoying me right now, but I use Chrome on my MacBook Pro and I use Safari on my phone.
Right. Yep. And I'm pretty much the same. That's the perfect illustrative example, in my opinion, of where we are. Because back then, when you talked about going to Micro Center, there wasn't another browser. I mean, at least not widespread. And so when
That's
Netscape
fair.
Navigator became a thing, then
Yeah.
you had a market. But prior to then, like we never thought about a different browser. It was like, well, we've got a disk drive for our computer, we've got a mouse for our computer, we've got a browser for our computer, and then somebody said, well, hey, we can build a better browser. And so
Right.
we never really thought about
Right.
competition in
Right.
that way. And
That's
so
right. Yeah.
it was essentially a nascent market. And to some degree, it's kind of funny. This is when I think almost happened backwards in that, you know, Microsoft didn't really have any sort of like robust teamwork messaging solutions when Slack was created. Slack was sort of like a new product of like, here's a new way to combine these different things at work. It's kind of like email, but it's kind of like text, and you've got these channels and stuff like that. And they're not the only ones to roll a product like that out. There's other
Yeah.
products. But
Yeah.
then,
Yeah. Yeah.
Microsoft saw people drifting from their productivity suites and said, well, like we can make one of those. And
Mm-hmm.
and they created a market.
Yep.
So there's just happened to be, and here's where I go full editorialize. There's just happens to be hot trash, and they have better ability to price it and include it to make people use it. And I will tell you
Yeah.
this, like I don't know if we'll get hate mail for this, but I hope people will write in. Every time I bring this up to people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you don't like Teams," and I'm like, just tell me, like honestly, I understand you use it. I understand your company uses it. Do you like it? Nobody ever says yes. Nobody's ever
Yeah.
like, oh,
Nobody
it's
says
so
yeah.
great. It does this thing. They all just say the same thing. It's like, well, it's just what we use. Like, that's what our company uses. Like, but do you like it? Well, no, not really, but I have to use it. Okay. Like, that's fair.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
I've known you a long time, and I had not realized how opinionated you are on these particular matters. However,
there are
you've
things
got
I'm
me
more
thinking
opinionated
about
about, but
yeah,
not
I'm
much.
right now I'm 3 hours ahead of you, and right now all I can think about is a cheeseburger, and all I'm thinking about is it'd be funny if one day we did a show, an episode of this where we're just actually eating burgers, kinda like Anthony Bourdain used to do, right? He'd be like at a little diner or something like that, talking to somebody else and just shoving food in his mouth.
I think that'd be funny for us. I don't know how the viewers would enjoy that with like a mouthful of ground beef, but we could
Oh,
certainly try it.
yeah, well, it would be good for my appetite. I don't think people wanna see you and me chewing like horses or anything like that, but whatever.
Probably not. Probably
Alright,
not.
so you're in Vegas the rest of the week? Or
Month,
when do you
year,
step foot
yeah,
in
yeah,
Virginia?
yeah, yeah. Tentatively 8, 9 days from now, which is it's always funny because like every time I check in to one of these longer stays in Vegas during construction, which I'd never done before, my typical thing was like I'd come out for 3 or 4 days, and like I checked in to the Venetian, and she's like, "Okay, Mr. Petrello, thank you so much, and you're here for 9 nights."
Yeah.
And like I can see
Yeah.
what's going through her head. Are you gonna die in that time? Because that's a long
I was
time
gonna
to try to
say,
be
yeah,
figuring.
like 99.9% of the check-ins are probably like a 2-day stay and everybody's walking out of there hungover.
Yeah, yeah. I say that the general gist of Vegas is the same as New Orleans. Like you go for 2 to 3 days and you burn your clothes on the way home. Like that's the
Mhm,
typical Vegas trip. But me, it's like,
mhm.
yeah, I was asleep by 9:30 last night. I am
Yeah.
that guy.
Well, whatever you have done to like make Vegas seem more fun, it's rubbing off on Dana now because we went there for a award ceremony thing, and my
Hmm.
birthday in March just happened to be the same day. And I thought, when we came back, she was like, "Man, Vegas is a little different than I remember it." I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, it's just so nice to be able to you can just park, you can just stay at any hotel, and 9 times out of 10 you got really great food options." And now she's been talking about it all year. She's like, "We should go back to Vegas." I'm like, You've been
Well,
down
you
there
should
yet,
go.
haven't
You should come visit me. Yeah, you should bring her. I haven't seen her in a while, so.
National Cheeseburger Day. Oh, sounds so
Yeah, that's
good.
probably a little bit. But we will have a 2,000 store opening celebration later in like October, November. So maybe you should come out for that.
Ooh,
Yeah.
all right, all right.
Bring all the
I like
kids.
it.
We have floats. Like I can hop your kids up on sugar like nobody else can.
Listen, I'm not bringing the kids to Vegas. Okay, all right. Like I got in-laws that can watch the kids. If I'm going out there with my wife, I kind of need a little break.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a story about bringing my son to Vegas, but that'll be for a future show.
Yeah, I love it. Or not on the show at all.
Yeah, you
I
never
don't think
know.
he would. I don't think your son would want that on here.
Yeah. Yeah.